Adding and subtracting review for decimals. Step 1, line up your decimals. Really important, most important thing you need to remember when adding and subtracting with decimals. Step 2 is to add zeros to the right of the decimal if you need to. That way you have the same number of digits to the right of the decimal for your problem. Okay, so let's practice a few. You have 3 1600ths plus 8700ths. We rewrite that, matching our decimals, lining them up, stacking one on top of the other. We don't need to add any zeros because you have 2 digits to the right of the decimal for both numbers. And then all you do is just add as you normally would, okay? So adding as we normally would, we get 4 300ths. You have to remember to drop down that decimal and put it into your answer. All right, second problem. 5 83 thousandths plus 1 6/10. Now this is where you're going to have to add zeros because in this number you have 3 digits to the right. This number you only have 1 digit to the right. So when we rewrite that, we have 5 83 thousandths plus 1 6/10. We lined up our decimals, but here I had to add 2 zeros, and then we would add as we normally would. And you get 6 683 thousandths. Okay, another one for practice. You have 97 hundredths plus 2 5/10. If you notice, their larger number is second. You're going to see a word problem, and the larger number is not always listed first. But when we add or subtract, I want you to make sure you're listing the larger number first, because subtracting, that's going to make a huge difference if the larger number is not listed first, and you don't get into negative numbers until middle school. So adding with the first listing 2.5 or 2 5/10 first, and then 97 hundredths. If you noticed, I lined up my decimals. I had 2 5/10, and then I lined up my decimal and I had 97 hundredths, but I had to put a 0 on top. That way they have the same number of digits. And then you add as you normally would. And you get 3 47 hundredths. All right, now moving on to subtracting. First problem was 1 8 thousandths minus 6 tenths. So if I write that and I line up my decimal, I'm going to have a 6 here, and I need to put 2 zeros here. So it looks like this. I had to add 2 zeros here, and then you can subtract. So 8 minus 0, 8. 0 minus 0, 0. 0 minus 6, I can't do that, so I had to regroup. Take 1 away from the 1, becomes a 0. You add your group of 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. As always, you should check your work. How do we check our work? You would add these two numbers together. Okay, so always make sure you're checking your work so you're not making careless mistakes. The last problem before we get into 2 word problems is 2 75 hundredths minus 9 tenths. So when we rewrite that, we line up our decimals, and I had to add a 0 here. Okay, and then I subtract as I normally would. 5 minus 0 is 5. 7 minus 9, I can't. I have to regroup. You take 1 away, add your group of 10. You get 8. 1 minus 0 is 1. And don't forget to drop down your decimal into the answer choice, okay? Then we want to always make sure we're checking our work. So you can take that number and add it to here. Add it to 9 tenths, and you should get this answer. Okay, so we're going to do a few word problems. When we work with decimals, oftentimes it's money. So this is a word problem involving money. I went to the mall and bought a coffee for $3.19 and a Cinnabon for $2.87. I paid with a $20 bill. How much change was given to me? So I want you guys to go ahead and pause the video and try to solve it on your own. It's multi-step. So first you need to figure out how much money you spent, and then how much change you're going to get from a $20 bill. And then when we start solving that, first step is to add your $3.19 and your $2.87 to get your total cost that you spent, all right? Then you need to subtract it from 20. I'm going to show you two different ways to solve. We have zeros that we have to subtract from, and that's always tricky for some of you, okay? So one way to solve is to kind of regroup or burrow across every number. So you have all zeros up top. You can't take 6 away from 0. You have to go next door. There's nothing to take from. So you have to start all the way at the 2, take 1 from the 2, and put a 10 here. You're not done. You can't borrow yet. So take 1 away from the 10. It makes 9. Here you have 10 now. Okay, now you can finally take from this number. So this becomes a 9. This becomes a 10. 10 minus 6, 4. 9 minus 0, 9. 9 minus 6, 3. 1 minus 0, 1. Right? I made sure I put my decimal place here. So your change is $13.94. Another method for solving when you have zeros is the box trick. Some of you learned this in 3rd grade. Okay, the box trick when you have zeros is to draw a box around the whole number until you just have 1 0 left. So I would draw a, sorry, I'm trying to look through the camera while I'm drawing the square, and my handwriting's messy. Now I have a box around 200, if you take away that decimal place for a second. Okay, take 1 away from the 200 and you would have 199, and you add a group of 10 here. Now you can subtract. 10 minus 6, 4. 9 minus 0, 9. Decimal place, 9 minus 6, 3. 1 minus 0, 1. Always mark out that 200 too. Okay, so same answer, different steps. All right, now we have one more problem for you all to solve. Chase was playing baseball against Leah. His batting average was a 0 hole and 768 thousandths, while Leah's was 956 thousandths. How much greater was Leah's average? All right, so we know when we're comparing two numbers, I've told you all this, when you compare two numbers, you need to subtract to solve. So you want to line them up. And here is a perfect example of where the larger number is coming second, but we need to make sure we are listing that one first or we'll get a negative number. Okay, so you have 956 thousandths minus 768 thousandths. If you need to pause to solve. Okay, and then we need to do a lot of regrouping here. So you can't take 8 from 6, so you need to borrow from the 5. It becomes a 4. You add that group of 10 here, and that makes 16. 16 minus 8 is 8. And then you would have a 4 up top here, so you have to borrow or regroup from the 9. That becomes an 8. You're adding a group of 10 to 4, which makes 14. 14 minus 6, 8. 8 minus 7, 1. 0 minus 0, 0. Decimal place. So how much greater was Leah's average? 188 thousandths greater. Canada, you need to make sure you check your email and follow all the directions for everything. There is a link for a math game to practice adding and subtracting decimals, and also benchmark assignment. Have a good day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.